Welcome to competency number 2 on the ICF updates. Now, competency number 2, it's all about embodying a coaching mindset. Many coaches think, oh, what does it mean to have a coaching mindset? Is it just is there a difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset and a coaching mindset? Well, to me, a growth mindset sometimes becomes a fixed mindset when we're always thinking we need growth, 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 and the idea and notion of growth becomes a fixed mindset. But a coaching mindset is one that is a learning mindset, one that says, hey, you know what? It's not about what I know, it's about me being curious about who the client is in this moment. Even if I've encountered 1,000 different clients and they repeated similar stories, similar situations or challenges or conflicts or progress or performance issues, but I would always come into the conversation fresh with fresh pair of lens. Even if I've coached the same person 10 times, 20 times, even if I've learned about this person over the years, may we always enter the conversation with fresh pair of ears and eyes and heart, just to create a blank space where we say, hey, okay, I've coached this person for the last 10 sessions, 20 sessions. This is what I know about this person, but could we take a step back and just say, hey, let's just be curious in this moment. Let's not take whatever that we knew previously and let's embody this. Let's embody a coaching mindset in this moment. And I like what has happened over the years that over the last 5 to 6 years, with the introduction of these new competencies, ICF has embarked on a lot of discussions with different stakeholders, coaches, practitioners alike, to discuss how do we better capture the nuance and the deep meaning of what a coaching mindset really is. And so they have updated the definition of what it means. And this is what the updated definition is of the coaching mindset. Engages in ongoing personal and professional learning and development as a coach, works with coaching supervisors or mentor coaches as needed, develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. So I like this part because now there's an added element of us as individual coaches to engage with ongoing, which is continuous. I like the sense of ongoing continuous learning, of professional and personal learning and development. This is so critical. We had a discussion earlier, with ICF, and I was privileged to be one of those core groups or working groups to have this discussion to say, hey, at the definition level, if we could share and highlight what it is a coaching mindset, what does it mean to embody, which means that we have to be active to take care of our learning. It's not just waiting for learning to happen, but us as coaches to be active learners as well. And what does this mean for us? So there are several updates here. In fact, out of all the competencies, competency number 2 has the most number of updates, including several new sub-competencies. So one of the key highlights was sub-competency number 2, where it includes the idea of staying current with the best practices. Because as things evolve, as generation evolves, as new technology, new research, new findings in psychology, different fields of studies evolve, we need to remain aware of the current coaching best practices and the use of technology. Well, in this 5 years, it could be technology. In the next 5 or 10 or 20 years, there may be immersion, new dimension or new bodies of studies that may emerge, right? In the past, it could be psychodynamics, it could be psychology, biochemistry, biomechanics, and now a lot of emphasis on technology. And what could be the future frontier way beyond technology? Could there be something else? Well, possibly. And the idea of the coaching mindset is to stay current, to stay open, to interact, to engage in discourse, to discuss, to understand the different nuances and impact globally of different bodies and different studies on the coaching. Sub-competency number 4 or 2.4, it says this: remains aware of and open to the influence of bias. So in the past, there's a missing word called biases. So I love that there's this new emphasis on biases. And that's so important because it's not just context and culture. Are we aware of our own biases? Or are we just, not aware of it? And sub-competency number 2.6, it says this: there's now a change from the word regulates one's emotions to manage one's emotions. So I like this subtle nuance because in our discussions earlier, there are different words to express different things. and it may come across very differently across all languages. And it's important for us to be inclusive in how those languages appeal to different audiences. So I like this idea where we have to be mindful of how those language come across to different individuals, to different organizations, different settings, in different contexts. So this part here is just as important as well. So we have this idea where regulation and management could be different in different language. And what does it mean to manage? So what it means to manage is first to be aware what has happened to our emotional state and what are we going to do about it, and are we going to change it? Are we going to have flexibility to develop it, to maintain it according to the context that we are serving? Sub-competency 2.7, it says this: there is an additional enhancement to the overall expression to it. So now the idea of mental well-being is emphasized, right? So for example, it says here maintains emotional, physical, and mental well-being in preparation for, throughout, and following each session. So I like this part a lot because this is something that I often share in a lot of my coaching engagements, in my coaching education from level 1 to level 3, helping coaches from ACC to MCC level, where preparation before, during, and after, it's so critical. It's not just mentally prepare, not just physically prepare, emotionally prepare, but it's being there. Are we taking conscious effort to prepare ourselves, or are we just going from session to session and session without quite spending time to deepen the understanding within? And we have a new competency or new sub-competency of 2.9. It says this: nurtures openness and curiosity in oneself, decline, and the coaching process. So I like this idea where the coaching mindset is about that space of curiosity and nurturing that sense of openness and playfulness. I like the idea of play. And, the word playfulness can come across very differently in different languages. But this idea of nurturing the openness and curiosity, it's something so critical because sometimes when we are so close to certain ideas about ourselves or others, we think that we know it all, or we think that, okay, the person's like that, I'm like that, or this person's like that. But if we take a step back and say, hey, could we be curious? Could we be open? Could we just have that openness of space just to discuss, just to remain there for the clients and just say, hey, you know what? There could be something emerging from this, and let me just be here for you. Let me just listen, tune in, and be there for you. And that's nurturing impact, I think, is so powerful because it's not just sharing the ideas, but being there for the clients, to nurturing openness and curiosity in oneself and the client and the coaching process. I love that. And another new introduction of another sub-competency, 2.10, it says that remains aware of the influence of one's thoughts and behaviors on the clients and others. So sometimes we are not careful that our own thoughts have begun to influence the way we hear, see, feel, experience, or maybe even ask questions on the way we listen or the way we conduct presence. So it could come from the place of our education. And I've seen many coaches having learned different skill sets. They are very excited to bring some of the skill sets into the space of the coaching conversation, but not realizing that it might not match what the client needs at the moment. And oftentimes, what seems good might not be good for the client. Just like, water is good for us, but if we overdrink water, it might become poison to us. In the very same way, what seems good might not be good if we overuse them. So, this idea of remaining aware of the influence of one's thoughts and behaviors on the client is so critical. I remember one time when I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and they were recounting an incident where another individual was conducting or facilitating a little workshop and getting everyone to close their eyes and go into that deep meditative space. And the client felt very uneasy because that was not something that the client was used to. But in the whole process, they were forced through the whole process. The client didn't like it, and they felt very disconnected, very disengaged, and they didn't feel very present in that moment. And that was when I began to realize, I said, hey, you know what? Sometimes some things may be good, but if we are not aware of how it impacts the client to be there in that moment, perhaps it's something for us to think about whether do we want to use them, or do we want to change and modify tools, techniques, or certain approaches, or modify our communication style of the client to best match them at where they are, not imposing our thoughts or ideology on them, but giving that space so that they can explore according to where they want to be. And that's something very important. So, how do we apply this daily? Well, for one, it's about grounding and centering before each session. What does it mean by grounding and centering? It means that, are we ready? Are we coming into the session prepared? Or are we just letting things go, and see what happens? Are we having that quiet confidence to say, hey, I'm here for the client, I'm ready, my state is ready, and I'm here for you, client? Also, think about having reflective journaling after each session. So, journal about what are you becoming more aware of with yourself, taking time for yourself. In fact, one of the things I enjoy doing is coaching coaches. And I've been coaching coaches all around the world. And one of the journeys I take with them is going deeper within themselves, taking time to learn more about who they are as an individual, taking time to allow them to step in, step out, step aside, to see the world through a whole nother lens, just to be curious and nurturing that curiosity of oneself. Now, also one thing, seek additional support. Supervisors, mentor coaches for support and growth. And that is where I enjoy my conversations with a lot of the coaches, where they come to me and say, hey, Jedi, can you be my supervisor or mentor coach or my coach to support me through this growth? So I'm always very excited because I get to journey with them on this amazing journey where it's very precious because it's each individual coach with a unique journey. And sometimes some of these coaches have a require that personal space to explore, to nurture, to grow. And it's for us as coaches to give them that space and honor that moment for them. Also think about how we can stay resourced in well-being, emotional, physical, and mental. Now, when done well in this competency, curiosity remains open rather than leading, rather than the need for us to lead the conversation. We enter the conversation with more curiosity, just being open. And biases are noticed and managed, and where the coach suspends any judgment. Self-awareness is active. So we're more aware of ourselves. We are able to better manage, regulate our emotions, and use intuition in a way to serve the client, not in a way to impress what we know, but to use it to serve the client. And well-being is prioritized, enabling consistent presence. So, for example, a coach notices internal fatigue and reschedules rather than delivering a distracted session. So, how many of us, maybe throughout the day, we're tired, feeling a little under the weather, and are we just pushing it through because we have to do it? Or are we bold enough, are we courageous enough to say, client, I apologize. I'm very sorry. I cannot give 100% of myself today. I need to reschedule. Even coaches need to reschedule, right? Even Supermen have a day off. So I would encourage coaches, when you don't feel at your 100%, consider rescheduling, consider taking a moment of pause, refresh yourself. When you're feeling tired, take the time, take the moment to recharge. One of the things I enjoy doing is organizing coaching retreats all year round to bring coaches to a space of just recharging because they have been giving, and they need that feeding in. So without the feeding in, we're just giving out of emptiness. We need to be at the overflowing in order to give our very best. Another example is a coach notices gender biases surfacing in their reaction and self-corrects and returning to openness. Now, sometimes we may have underlying biases which we may not realize. And so I often encourage coaches, even if we think we have many years of experience, take time, recognize those biases, take a moment to pause, reflect, and just ask ourselves, hey, are there any other biases that we are noticing? Creating that mindset that is quiet soil of coaching, right? So I like this. Mindset is that quiet soil, ready to be nurtured, pouring with water and the right fertilizers to let it nurture and grow. Some of the struggles for competency number 2, it's when it's agenda driven, where a coach enters a session with their own outcome in mind, kind of forcing the client through that outcome, neglecting the well-being of fatigue, distraction, and burnout that leaks into presence. So if you don't care about your own well-being, it often leaks into presence. It often impacts your coaching to be able to deliver your best. And sometimes I often say this, coaches need to invest more in themselves, because how could we support our clients without investing in ourselves, in our own well-being? And I encourage you, take a chance, right? Go for a well-being retreat, find a coach to support you in this. And this is where I often come in. I bring coaches all around the world for well-being retreats, because it's just time for them to separate themselves from the busyness of the day and just take time, just to moments of reflection, deepening their internal insights and thoughts. Also, blind to biases without allowing cultural or personal filters to shape the question. So sometimes they have allowed their own personal filters to shape the questions and inevitably leading the client to a certain direction without realizing it. Sometimes open questions can also be leading questions because of the way we ask the questions without realizing that those questions are leading the clients to a certain direction. Now, also resistant to learning, not engaging in supervision, feedback, or reflection. So, for example, a coach interrupts a client repeatedly to force their version of clarity. When mindset narrows, presence shrinks. When curiosity dies, coaching becomes control. So, this is what I often say, right? You want to be in a space where you have time to reflect on the way you have conversations with each other. How aware are you today of yourself? How aware are you of the areas that perhaps you've neglected in your own personal care? Or could there be blind spots of biases, cultural indifference, inclusivity, or maybe personal filters, or maybe your own personal experience that have influenced the way that shape your conversation? So think about, how do you grow in this aspect for competency number two. However, I will have a whole deeper series on these competencies, because we're only touching the surface here. I'm giving a broad overview, and I would love to take the time to go deeper with you.